Hello, welcome, Merry Christmas. My name is Erin, and here I am replicating a piece of art made by Blair, and it's little Santa sitting on what I think is a rocking horse. So I started off by sketching out the composition, which I usually don't do. I usually just go right in and paint. But for this one, I didn't want to paint the entire background green because then I would have used a lot of paint to try to cover up the green. But also the horse is filled with watercolors. So to do this wet on wet technique, I couldn't have a green background to start with. So I decided to draw out the shapes. And you can see I'm sort of doing this very quickly. I'm barely lifting my pencil up off the page. And then I erased the lines that I didn't like, and now I'm filling in the horse with water. So this is just straight up clean water. I'm filling it as quickly as I can. And then I've mixed a little bit of black with a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of yellow ochre to create this really warm, sort of dark, deep, burnt umber sort of color. Now I'm mixing a little bit of Prussian blue with black so that I get a cooler black, something that's just slightly more on the blue end of the black spectrum. And letting the wet on wet technique do its thing, just dropping in the color gently where I see the spots on the horse. And yeah, a little bit more blue in there just to give more of a variation. I can see in the original piece of artwork there was quite a bit of blue in the spots. So doing that. Does anyone know what are these horses called that are dappled like that? Are they just called dappled? Not sure. Now I'm doing the face again, wet on wet. So I put a little bit of water up near the top of the forehead and added a little bit of yellow ochre and burnt sienna. And now I'm doing red gouache mixed with a lot of water. And I used gouache just because I had it right there handy. And when you water it down, it behaves like watercolor. And I'm just dabbing in a little bit more of that ochre and burnt sienna after it dried a bit to make it more opaque. Now I'm doing this bright red Santa coat, and I'm not really worrying too much about it being perfect because in the original piece of artwork, Blair did this very quickly, and there was like even a little bit of white showing through, and it just had that nice energy, that sort of unfinished style that looks really great. So I didn't worry about things being super opaque and flat and perfect. Now I'm adding a little bit of black to the red to make a deeper, darker red. It's a great trick. Just a tiny bit of black will give you that deeper blood red for his pants and for his arm here. So making this simple arm. I love creating Blair artwork because, you know, at that time, the style, which she was one of the pioneers of, was very simplified, these abstracted shapes. So I love that the arm is just this weird sort of stretched out triangle. It's great. And the little boots too are my favorite. Okay, now doing the background. So this is an emerald green mixed with some yellow and a little tiny bit of white and a little tiny bit of red just to desaturate the green slightly. So if you ever want to desaturate green, you use the complementary color, which is red. And I'm doing the first coat. So I mixed water in with my gouache, really mixed it well. And it's not super watery, but it's not as thick as the top coat will be. So just doing this first coat as quickly as possible. Of course, I've sped up the video, but I did do this as quickly as I could. Holding the paintbrush again, I always say this, but you hold it really close to the bristles for more control and just smoothing it out, but not going over what I've painted, not really worrying if it's super smooth, or at least not worrying about the streaks, because if I go back and try to smooth that out, I could kind of wreck this surface. Oh, my voice just got wrecked. I don't want the surface to look like my voice just sounded, which is rough. So yeah, so just doing this first coat very, very quickly around these contours. And I should mention I've been painting for a long time. I've been painting for about 25 years now, seriously painting for maybe more like 18 years. So I've, had a lot of practice to get into these little areas with accuracy. So don't beat yourself up if you're not as accurate as I am at this point. Practice makes perfect though. or practice makes almost perfect. After the first coat completely dried, I'm going in with a second coat, and you can see I've done it all here. I just edited that out, but yeah, it's slightly thicker than the first coat, but still nice and creamy, similar to melted ice cream. Okay. And now I'm doing the tail. This is a tiny, tiny bit of ultramarine blue and a little bit of cyan blue. So we have a warm and a cool blue in there with some white and a little tiny bit of black to make this sort of silvery mane. I love the little tuft of hair at the top there. In the hooves. And next we're going to draw the smile on real quick. Nice and rough, and these eyeballs, which I'm just eyeballing. I didn't bother to draw the circle first, so they're not perfect, but that's okay. Again, this is why I love replicating Mary Blair, because it's not about perfection. It's about charm and expression and great energy. And this little cute headband looks like a sweatband, but it's the bridle. Is that what we call it? I don't know. I've ridden a horse like twice in my life. I loved it, but I don't really know the terminology. Oh, cute little boots. I love the boots. With the little upturned toes. Because Santa's an elf, right? Isn't he part elf or something? And then this was the part that usually would freak me out, but I just went for it. I felt confident today, and I just swooshed it, and there we go. The little rocking parts of the rocking horse, and then his, I should know what that's called. The reins. The thing that holds you to the horse, a little tuft on the top of his hat. And the last thing that I'm doing here is I'm adding some watered down gouache to these spots to make the spots a little bit more precise, and then just washing it out a bit with water so they're not too sharp. But that's it. There we go. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a great holiday.